I want crypto. I think crypto is important because if we don't do it, China's going to. And it's new. It's very popular. It's very hot. If you look at the market, when the market went down, that stayed much stronger than other aspects of the market. But I want crypto because a lot of people, millions of people want it. I don't know if you know that Biden went after it violently, and then before the election, he changed his tune entirely. His head of the SEC, everybody changed their tune. You know why? Because there were hundreds of millions of people that are participating in crypto, and they wanted to get their votes.
That was President Trump over the weekend, and he had some pretty bullish things to say about the cryptocurrency markets at large. And he also highlights how it's actually held up given all the kind of market turmoil around tariffs. And I think we could be in for certainly a volatile week. We've got the Fed rate decision on Wednesday. I don't think they're going to cut. I think more importantly, we'll look at that at the end of the video. I think more importantly is going to be what comes after that in regards to forward guidance. And the markets will react. And I do think the S&P is coming into an area where you would expect to find resistance after an epic rally. And I think we're about 65% recovered. We've still got that 35% to go before we sort of flip bullish on certainly the S&P as an index. I don't like the fact that it broke market structure. For it to redeem itself, it needs to retrace the pullback. And I do think that's the likely scenario. However, I want to save that for the end of the video. I just want to start off with that clip because it was unbelievably bullish. And today may actually turn out to be a pretty damn bullish day because we've got two deadlines taking place today. One is the Litecoin ETF. There's been a host of ETFs that were delayed. The Litecoin one was not. ETFs are coming, and they are a fundamental driver of the cryptocurrency space. And we're expecting fundamental drivers to the upside for crypto based on technically what we're looking at. We'll link that in when we look at what James Seyfarth had to say about that. And you've also, and this is perhaps where we shall start, got the deadline for the Treasury, Mr. Scott Bessent, a genius of a man, by the way, to deliver an evaluation for establishing and managing the strategic Bitcoin reserve as mandated by Trump on March the 60th executive order. So the deadline for this is today. This, of course, is the official White House filing. You can see here it says, within 60 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of the Treasury shall deliver an evaluation of the legal and investment considerations for establishing and managing the strategic Bitcoin reserve and United States digital asset stockpile going forward. So this doesn't just apply to Bitcoin, but certainly the cryptos that were mentioned, the crypto space more broadly, including the accounts in which the strategic Bitcoin reserve and United States digital asset stockpile should be located, and the need for any legislation to operate any aspect of this order or the proper management and administration of such accounts. So the deadline for this is today. This was 60 days from when this was essentially signed. And that deadline is the 5th of May. It also happens to be May Day here in the UK, so it's a bank holiday. Bank holidays are always an inconvenience for me because, every day is a work day for me, and I love that. So this is set to drop today. We're going to see what happens. And I think really for Bitcoin, you guys know big time frame what we're looking at, smaller time frame we're looking at this wedge to play out. And it's playing out thus far. It's run into a bit of resistance. I think you're going to push right through this. And this could be a catalyst. We shall see though. We'll see exactly what comes out. And I'm going to be certainly interested, not just in regards to Bitcoin and the inevitability of that, but actually more broadly, the crypto space at large and what's mentioned and the kind of digital asset stockpile. Today also there's another deadline. This is from James Seyfarth, great guy to follow, by the way, along with Eric Balanchunas, two really good guys to follow on all of this. They're really on it. The Canary Fund Litecoin ETF filing is due for a decision, possibly a delay, by Monday the 5th, so the 5th of May. The SEC went early and delayed a bunch of filings, but not this one. If any asset has a chance of early approval, it's Litecoin, in my opinion, personally. Think a delay is more likely, but defo something to watch. Also taking place today. So America's still largely asleep at the time of me recording, but these are two things that are happening today on the 5th of May. Nice little cheesy rhyme for everybody there. Before we get into the markets more broadly, let's do what we like to do on a Monday, and that is take a look at CoinShares Digital Asset Flow Weekly Report. They track the flows into the cryptocurrency space week by week, and of course we have seen investor sentiment remain strong with a $2 billion inflow. It wasn't quite, I think we had the third largest inflows on record last week. Of course, we covered it. The quick TDR is digital asset investment products recorded a third consecutive week of inflows, totaling $2 billion last week, bringing total inflows over the past 3 weeks to $5.5 billion. Bitcoin was the prime beneficiary, seeing $1.8 billion inflows last week, although the recent price rise also saw bearish investors add 6.4 million. Ethereum saw a second week of solid inflows totaling 149 million, bringing the last 2 weeks of inflows to 336 million. Competitor Solana saw minor inflows of 6 million. Why didn't they highlight XRP, which won again in regards to the altcoins? You can see XRP shining here. It talks about regionally, obviously US is the big one, and then respectively Germany, Switzerland, and Canada. Remember, Germany is the third largest economy in the world. Ethereum saw a second week of solid inflows, bringing last week's to total. Other notable inflows were XRP, Tezos, with inflows of 10 million and 8 million. Blockchain equities also saw 15.9 million. So generally positive in regards to inflows. We're getting accumulation from what I would suggest as an institutional elk of investor that are going through the likes of CoinShares. I don't think it's retail that are using or not going through CoinShares, going through the ETFs and the ETPs. I don't think it's retail that's doing that. Certainly as it relates to the altcoin sector, they can just buy on whatever else. Let's talk a little bit about markets. So we're waiting for these falling wedge to play out for Bitcoin and the space generally. We've looked at the total cryptocurrency market cap. We've spoken about crypto ETPs like Grayscale Digital Large Cap Fund, Bitwise Top 10. These are all playing out. We expect continuation. There could be a number of catalysts this week. Today, we've looked at potentially 2 in the Strategic Reserve and Digital Asset Stockpile deadline, and a potential Litecoin ETF decision being made that could go. It certainly hasn't been delayed like the rest of them, which is interesting. But there is the lurking Fed rate decision that is set to take place in approximately 2 hours or 2 days and 6 hours. This is, of course, taking place on the 7th of May. Probabilities are they're not going to cut rates. I think what they're going to say after that, though, is important. June actually looks like they may be a little bit more likely to cut rates, which is interesting. Usually they do it in a sort of 2-month block, and July is looking like we're going to get that other cut. And I think certainly as I relate this to the markets, something like the DAX or the European stock market generally has recovered better than the US markets, because it's kind of a US specific thing going on right now, but not, if that makes sense. And of course Europe has lower interest rates, so there's a combination of things going on there. We have retraced 65% of this pullback at this point, which is great. It's a good sign. It's turning into be more than just a dead cat bounce, in my opinion. You are running into resistance, though, however. So I do think you're going to see some chop and volatility this week, compounded by the rate decision. You've also got earnings. I'm trying to think. There's quite a few earnings coming out, actually, this week, quite a few big companies. So I would expect a bit of volatility here. For me, I want to see this entirely retraced, and then you're off to the races. And that's the general direction we think things are going to go in. We have a bullish, optimistic bias generally when it comes to the markets right now. And certainly as it relates to the cryptocurrency space, we're unbelievably bullish. So we'll see what happens with the Fed rate decision. Some interesting things to watch out for today, though, in regards to the 2 potential ETF or 1 potential ETF approval. And, of course, we've got the Strategic Reserve and Crypto Digital Asset Stockpile. The deadlines for both of them are today. We're seeing positive inflows. We're yet to see what happens with the markets. Like I say, you could have a bit of a pullback here. I really want to see this push through. And I think Bitcoin looks great, in my opinion. It really does. And you are going to see continuation for Bitcoin. It's just run into resistance. Also, US market needs to open up. Dollar's down today. The futures for the US markets are down. Quick look at the European markets before I love and leave everyone. These are up. I mean, look at the DAX's recovery. You know, the DAX has been a beautiful chart. I mean, this made our target perfectly. And this is sort of the equivalent of Bitcoin getting to 306, which we think is going to happen in due course. So yeah, a lot going on, lot to pay attention to today, lot to pay attention to this week. We'll be getting you through it day in, day out. Don't worry, guys. And honestly, there's never been a better time to be in the cryptocurrency space. If you haven't considered becoming a patron, do check the Patreon link out in the description. We've got an influx of new joiners. We did an interesting thing yesterday where we kind of looked at the fact that the same people that were really or are behind the biggest internet companies and evolving money via the internet are the same people that are behind certain cryptocurrencies today. And I think that's interesting, and I think that's telling probably more so. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.